Hello everyone and welcome to one of the best games ever played, or at least a book I own states so. It is the first game in the book, and also the game is featured many other places, like it's featured in the Bobby Fischer My 60 Memorable Games, and pretty much everyone features this game because it's just that great. It's from the Interzonal tournament played in Sousse in 1967, and it's well, one of the tournaments that Fischer did not finish. He left the tournament on 8.5 out of 10, and I believe 21 or 22 rounds were played. So he was at some point he was leading the tournament, but he got into an argument with the organizers and left. But the results remain, the games remain, and the moves are here for us to analyze and enjoy. I don't want to take anything away from this game, so I will talk a little bit more about this tournament in some other games I cover from this event, but for this one, let's focus on the game. So it's Robert James Fischer, or Bobby Fischer, as we like to call him on this channel, a US champion versus Leonid Stein, a USSR champion, Soviet champion at the time. So far, they've played only one game, so this is their second game they're playing. The one they played before was 5 years ago in the Stockholm Interzonal tournament, and that game ended in I believe it was some 20-something moves draw, maybe even below 20 moves. A really short game. But yeah, let's check it out and let's see why everyone really loves this game. So Fischer with white opens with pawn to e4, and one thing also that I've read on numerous occasions is that Fischer and Stein sometimes discussed this particular line, and Fischer was in favor of a certain set of moves. Stein was in favor of the other set of moves, and they even got into an argument, said that they, maybe they should just play a match to decide on it. They were even offered to play a blitz match to see whose variations were better, but Fischer didn't want to do that. He wanted to have a proper match, a classical match, and the match never happened. As I'm told, Stein wanted to have a match after he played the USSR championship that was to be had in like a month, but Fischer was not interested because if Stein lost his title as the USSR champion, then the match between them would not be as impressive. This way, it would be US champion versus the USSR champion. But okay, that's all besides the point for this game. So let's check it out. E4 by Fischer, pawn to e5. We have knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. We have the Ruy Lopez, a6, and we have bishop to a4. In his book, My 60 Memorable Games, Fischer says that perhaps Stein was expecting bishop captures on c6, as this is something Fischer often played. Bishop to a4. We have knight to f6. Castles by Fischer, and now bishop to e7. We have rook to e1, pawn to b5 attacking the bishop, bishop to b3, and now pawn to d6. Also, Fischer mentions that had a martial attack arisen in this game, something like castle c3 and d5. Fischer also wanted to show what he had in mind. He had this variation in mind: captures, knight captures, rook captures, and after pawn to c6, he had plans of playing pawn to g3. It's a bit of a weird move, but of course it can be played. Bishop to d6 attacks the rook, rook e1, and after knight to f6, pawn to d4, and you avoid all the usual stuff where you have to worry about your h2 pawn and so on. Let's say bishop g4 attacks the queen, queen to d3, and now after pawn to c5, threatening pawn to c4, you will have bishop c2 with some very nasty pressure here. Black should be okay after pawn to c4, but then the queen comes to f1, and also it's a nice position. This is what Fischer had in mind. He says that he already showed once how it's played. So here, pawn to d6 instead by Stein. c3, we have castles, and pawn to h3. Bishop to b7, and now Fischer strikes in the center with pawn to d4. And this is still very popular even nowadays. Rook to e8 being the most popular move, knight to d7 being the second most popular. Here, knight to a5 was played, but also, as Fischer says, the knight really wants to come to d7. The problem is usually knight to b8 is played, and this is something you've probably already seen in the Breyer variation, where you bring the knight back, play c5, bring the knight to d7. But Fischer says that here, if you go knight to b8, then after this trade and queen captures on d8, black must recapture with the bishop. Rook captures is bad for black, bishop captures, and now after, let's say, knight captures and knight captures, that the knight here will be hindering the development of the this knight, so it's not the best perhaps. So that's why knight to a5, it will take a little bit longer, but the knight could reach d7 via some other squares. Bishop to c2, of course you don't want the bishop captured. Knight to c4 and pawn to b3. We have knight to b6 and now knight b to d2, and Stein finally gets his knight all the way to d7. Also, Fischer says that maybe it's, that's already the fifth move with the knight. Maybe just captures, for example, here, and pawn to c5 gives black a little bit more. But no, knight b to d7 by Stein. And here Fischer plays a new move in the position that was never played before. The position is a known one. Bishop to b2 was played in the game Keres versus Gligoric in the famous Zurich tournament of 1959. But here, pawn to b4 first. Fischer fights against c5, and it is now, as of move 14, that we have a completely new game. So, okay, e captures on d4, we have c captures, and now, again, c5, very, very hard to play. For example, you play c5 here, captures, and d5. Yes, both of them would have a passed pawn, but the passed d pawn is stronger. So here, that's why a5 was played by Stein, b captures on a5, and now pawn to c5. So a temporary pawn sacrifice, but Fischer's a-pawns are doubled, and Stein will recapture at some point. He also indicates that if rook captures on a5, then you have time for knight b3. You can, for the moment, you don't even leave the pawn defenseless. The bishop and rook are defending it, but you are attacking the rook on a5. And after the rook moves, queen d3, threatening e5, which would be very nice. So pawn to c5, now d captures, and e5, attacking the knight. Now pawn to c4, and this is the idea that Fischer had. E captures on f6, you sacrifice the queen. C captures, f captures on e7, threatening the black queen. Queen c7, and now you also take the rook with check. Knight captures, and now you either capture and allow bishop captures on f3, or you play bishop to d1. But yeah, you have a bishop, a dark square bishop, a knight, and the rook for the queen. So white is definitely winning here. So that's why after this b captures on a5 move, c5 by Stein, and now Fischer played pawn to e5. Bishop to b2 also can be played. e5, he says, is much, much cleaner. We have d captures on e5, and now d captures on e5. Knight to d5 and knight to e4, now getting more attackers into the game. And the thing is, you still can't capture on a5. If you capture on a5, then just knight eg5 and you resign. There's no defense here. All of your pawns in front of the king are being attacked. If pawn to h6, for example, queen d3, threatening checkmate, you have to play g6, and you can also play knight captures on f7, rook captures, you can capture on g6, you can play e6, everything is hanging, everything is falling apart. It will be a very quick win. So that's why knight to b4 by Stein, and now bishop to b1. Fischer keeping his bishop safe here, rook captures on a5, and now queen to e2. Getting the queen into the game, and also just mounting the pressure. And c4 here, probably the best. c4, you create an outpost for the knight on d3, and you play knight d3. Even by giving up a pawn, it's best to get rid of the light square bishop. However, Stein played knight to b6, and Fischer says that this could very well be the losing move, even though a victory is not that close. Knight f to g5. Okay, now everything Fischer has throws at that black king, and you have to capture it. Point is that now if you play c4, you prepare the attack, knight f6 check. You capture queen h5, and there's no defense against checkmate. Bishop, queen, and knight are attacking it. Even if you move the rook, you just capture with the queen on f7, then on h7, checkmate is coming. So bishop captures on e4, only move for Stein. Queen captures, you even leave the knight hanging, as checkmate is, much stronger. g6, and now queen to h4, again threatening checkmate. Pawn to h5, and now queen to g3, getting the queen out of harm's way. And now comes knight to c4. Other moves don't really help Stein, and here Fischer went back with the knight to f3. Also very nice is pawn to e6, but pawn to e6 is a disgusting engine line that I know you guys love, so I will show it, even though it will make the video a little bit longer. But not showing this line would be, well, it would be a crime against chess. So I will show it. E6, how do you defend? Everything now is falling apart here. For example, f5, knight to f7. You go after the g7 pawn, and now let's say you give up the exchange here, captures, 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 bishop captures on f5. And after g captures, bishop to h6, threatening queen to g7. And now after bishop to f6, up until this point, you guys have probably calculated everything, but rook a to d1. The only winning move, and now, it seems like after queen to c8, again, only winning move, bishop g5. And now after, okay, now you can play pretty much anything because now the position is winning. But yeah, reaching this was not easy. If bishop captures, king captures, rook to d6 check, you even sacrifice the rook. Knight captures, queen captures, and now you just get checkmate. Let's say queen to g3, and this would be checkmate. So yeah, this would be much faster. Fischer went back, knight to f3, king to g7, and now queen to f4. Knight to f3 is not a mistake. It's the second move recommended by the engine, but it's not a clean sweep. So the queen wants to come to h6, so rook to h8, and now pawn to e6. Now Fischer plays it. We have pawn to f5, and now I could ask you to pause the video and win the game for Fischer, but pretty much I've pretty much explained the position up until this point. So you can pause the video if you really want, but I know you can recognize the move, even though it's the only winning one. Bishop captures on f6 on f5. Fischer loved his bishops, and now it's time to part with it. Bishop captures on f5. To quickly show what happens if you capture queen to g3 check, and after king to h7, now bishop to g5. Only winning idea. And after rook to g8, pinning the bishop, rook a to d1, attacking the black queen. And you can no longer defend this position. For example, queen to e8, rook to d7, and now if knight to b6, attacking the rook, you even play queen to h4. The idea is that there's no move for black, and you will force the black queen away from the defense of the h5 pawn, especially if you capture. If you capture, pawn captures, now the queen has to leave, and that's all there is. You could play queen to f7, but then just rook captures on e7, you lose the queen. If you go here, then queen captures on h5, king to g7, queen to h6 check, king to f7, knight to e5 check, forks the king and the queen, and it will be checkmate very quickly. So here, queen to f8 was played, and now comes bishop to e4. Here, Fischer is winning, but knight to h4, again, a move that Fischer missed. Knight to h4, just crushing. Point being that now you don't have any other option than to capture. Knight to g6 is coming. And once you capture, queen captures on h4. And after queen captures on f5, queen e7 check. You cannot go to h6. And once the king moves, queen to d8 with check, king h7, and now queen to c7 with check. King g8, e7, followed by e8 queen. That's it. So after queen to f8, bishop to e4, again, Fischer not happy with this move in his book, but it is the second top move recommended by the engine. A queen trade occurs, queen captures, we have bishop captures, and now rook to e8, putting the rook behind the passed pawn. Later on, Stein recommended after the game that he should try rook to e6, even though that's not really good. It also loses him the game. The only real try here is rook captures on a2, and after, let's say, rook a to d1, now rook back to a7, stopping rook to d7. But okay, in the game, Stein played rook to e8, and now rook a to d1. We have rook to a6, preparing to capture. Now comes rook to d7. And here comes Fischer's beautiful combination. He gives up his prized passed e-pawn for what will be a clean sweep this time. Rook captures on e6, knight to g5. Attacks the rook, of course the bishop is pinned, you cannot capture. Rook to f6, and now bishop to f3. Beautiful, beautiful move. Seems like Fischer just wants to win the bishop on e7 in exchange for his bishop on f4, but really the rook is lost. There's nothing you can do here. You cannot go here. So rook captures on f4 is played, and now just knight to e6 with the fork. king to f6, knight captures on f4, and now Fischer is up the exchange, and it's merely a matter of can he win this endgame. We have knight to e5, attacks the rook, rook to b7, attacks the b5 pawn, and bishop to d6. We have king to f1. Fischer said other moves are possible, but king to f1 eliminates any and all counterplay. Now you don't have to worry about any tricky checks here. Knight to c2, and now rook to e4. We have knight to d4, rook to b6. Pinning the bishop here, we have rook to d8 defending, and now knight to d5 check. King to f5, and now knight to e3 check. Fischer says that not only is white an exchange ahead, but his attack still rages. This was the here the game was adjourned, and this is the move that Fischer put in his envelope to be played on the next day, but there is no saving Stein's position. We have king back to e6, bishop to e2, and now king to d7. We have bishop captures on b5. The threat here, okay, if the king doesn't go here, is f4. That's why the king had to move, and also the other threat, bishop captures on b5. So there's nothing to try here. Bishop captures on b5 check, knight captures, rook captures, king to c6, now pawn to a4. So now Fischer's up the exchange and also up a pawn. Plus it's a passed a pawn, very, very strong. We have bishop to c7, king to e2, pawn to g5, and pawn to g3. We have rook to a8, rook to b2, and now rook to f8. Stein trying everything he can, but there is no rescue here. Captures, captures, knight to f7, now rook e6 check. We have knight to d6 and pawn to f5. Of course, the pawn cannot be captured. The knight is pinned here. We have rook to a8, putting pressure on the a4 pawn, rook to d2. Fischer says, all right, you can have that a4 pawn. Stein captures it, now pawn to f6, and he was in this position on move 56 that Leonid Stein resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The passed pawn now marches forward. If you try something like this, it doesn't matter. You just kick the king back, advance the pawn. There's no stopping the pawn. If rook to a8, you can even play rook to e8. If knight captures, then the rook no longer guards the f8 square, and if the rook captures, first you eliminate the knight with check, and then you pick up the rook with another queen in the game. Or, you know, if king captures, also same thing, queen captures on e8. So what do you think? I mean, quite a lot to discuss here, so it made a bit of a longer video, but yeah, definitely one of the nicer games we've covered, one of nicer Fischer games. It does happen against a very, very strong opponent, against the Leonid Stein, Soviet champion. And yeah, I will show you some other games from this tournament as well. Maybe not all of them, but I will do most of them, and then we're going to discuss what happened in the tournament, and so on and so on. Why Fischer left, why he didn't try to qualify for the candidates, why not try to become world champion, even though those of you who have seen my Fischer saga know that, you know, that will happen eventually. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Robert James Fischer. I would like to thank Eric Keith McAllister, MB Reed, Kristen Janet, Jack Obid, and Adam Simmons for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.